All right, what's up everybody? Aaron here with another Sunday installment for you guys, and today we're going to go backwards. It's inversion. You don't need the whole backstory, but let's just, instead of looking today positively at what we can learn to do, let's look at what we cannot, what we shouldn't do. Well, you'll see where we're going, but I'm going to take it, instead of a positive turn, I'm going to take it at a negative turn. We're doing Isaiah 6, chapter 6, 1 through 10 today. So let's just get right into reading that, okay? And I'm reading from the NIV right here. So Isaiah 6 says this: "In the year King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord, high and exalted, seated on the throne, and the train of his robe filled the temple. Above him were seraphim, each with 6 wings. With 2 they covered their faces, 2 they covered their feet, and with 2 they were flying, and they were calling to one another, 'Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty. The whole earth is full of his glory.' And the sound of their voice, at the sound of their voices, the doorposts and thresholds shook, and the temple was filled with smoke. 'Woe to me,' I cried. 'I am ruined, for I am a man of unclean lips. I live among people of unclean lips, and my eyes have seen the King, the Lord Almighty.' Then one of the seraphim flew to me with a live coal in its hand, which he had taken with tongs from the altar. With it he touched my mouth and said, 'See, this has touched your lips. Your guilt is taken away, and your sin atoned for.' Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, 'Whom shall I send? And who will go for us?' And I said, 'Here am I, send me.'" Now I'll just skip 9 and 10, but God is sending Isaiah out to speak to Israel. Okay, so like I said, what should we avoid? What can we learn to avoid out of Isaiah 6, 1 through, I guess I read through 8, in our Christian faith? Well, okay, so let's ask ourselves, what, instead of how can we grow in God, how can we destroy our faith in God? Instead of how can we show God to the world and be a blessing, let's say, how can we, destroy our witness to the world? How can we destroy our showing of God? So out of those two pieces, let's ask those negative questions, and from that we can learn, well, what to stay away from. So number one thing that we could do, how would we destroy our faith in God? Well, number one, we would turn the sacred into the silly. Or to be more fancy, the sacred into the profane. Okay, sacred meaning godly, pure, holy, exalted, worthy of worship, awesome. Okay, we turned that into the silly and profane. Profane means to use something in an unworthy manner, to bring it down from where it should be, to make it lowly, where instead of it's supposed to be high and lifted up. See, I mean, that's what Isaiah said, high and lifted up, and the God's presence filled the temple, the palace, whatever, everything, God's there. And so what we can do, the negative question is, what do we need to destroy our faith, our personal connection to God? What do we need to do to really destroy that? Well, we need to turn the sacred into the silly, the holy into the sacred into the profane. So that's what we do. Now, how do we turn the sacredness of God into the profane? Well, we lower God, right? We don't see God as high and lifted up. We see God as just, something to do when we're not doing anything else. We don't give God our best. We don't give God our utmost. We don't give God all of those things. That's how we destroy our faith in God. So we need to avoid that. On the other side, we need to be those who exalt God, who put God high and lift it up, right? Isaiah here, thinking that he couldn't even look to God's face. The grandeur of God was so big that he would only see the hem of his garment, which filled the place, it says. And that doesn't mean that God was wearing a XXX robe. That means God's presence filled the whole place with his glory. Now, Isaiah could have taken this here like we could and thrown it aside and said, no, that's just stupid. God's stupid. I've got things to do. That's just the spiritual side, and I've got other things, so we're going to go this way. We can do that in our own life when we demote God from high and lifted up to, well, trash, basically. So we need to avoid that at all costs. How do you destroy your faith in God? You make God into silliness. You make the worship of God into about you and your own preferences. You make God into your own little pet project where you, rub for money, like a genie in a lamp. You get mad at God when He doesn't give you what you want. You demand of God. You yell at God. Christian folk, how do we make God silly? How many church folk you know that use the name of God as an exclamation at best, or a curse word at worst? How often do we delete God to that lower place who said, my family comes before that, my job comes before that, or man, everything we lower God. A good way to tell of what you and I value is, what do we spend most of our thinking on, and what do we spend most of our money on? Those things show exactly where our priorities are. What do you spend most time thinking? What do you spend most time buying? Those things show your priorities. And so we can demote God in every way in our life, and it will quickly destroy us. So we need to be like Isaiah here, prostrate before this holy God, seeking to know Him. Right. This past week, I watched Jordan Peterson a lot on YouTube, and he was on the Joe Rogan show. And I'm not promoting the Joe Rogan show. I'm just saying Peterson was on there, and he used to be an atheist, and he's coming over to Christian faith slowly but surely, I believe. Anyway, he said, who dares say they believe in God? Because this is such a crazy claim, of a huge claim, a gigantic claim that he's, to use his words, you have to be all in to say that, and yet we can destroy it so easy if we're not all in. We're just a little in, because God is, well, not that important after all. Other things, kids' sporting events, or a sporting event, or work, or I'm too busy, or I'm too tired, or this, and it's too hard to do that. We can really minimize God. So the first thing we need to say to not destroy our relationship with God is never, ever demote God from sacred to silly, from holy to profane. Never do that, and you'll be good to go. Now, the second piece here is, what can we do to destroy our faith and to destroy our witness to the larger world, to the watching world? What do we need to do that we should stay away from? Well, it's easy. That the second one is to make the holy into the hollow. And since these, they match, it must be from God, right? The holy into the hollow. Holiness, means, well, holiness, set apart, the awesomeness of God. It reflects God's character. Hollow, you know what hollow means. It's like empty and lifeless, and like a Easter bunny, hollow chocolate Easter bunny. Remember those? Such a disappointment. And we can destroy, this is what we should avoid. We can destroy our relationship with God and our witness to the watching world by when we turn our holiness into hollowness. Now, holiness, what does it mean to be holy? Well, it means to be made new in the image of God. It's to live in the newness of God, and it carries this ethical component to it. Okay? It means that we act in a way that shows our God. It's not keeping the commandments, it's living them into the world. So, if we take the holy and turn it into the hollow, and this is what we should avoid, we will not take it seriously. We will not act in a way that reflects God. We will not be changed. We will not be made new. We will not be new creations. We will be old creation. We will resemble what we used to. We will resemble everyone else who has no faith in God. Did you know that the faith in the one God of Israel was very different than the faiths of old days? And what I mean by that is those faiths, those religions were about appeasing the gods, making them happy so they didn't kill you, smite you, curse you, whatever. And then here comes this faith in this God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, and on and on. The faith in this God says it's how you live. You please God by how you live, by how you treat others, by how you treat those who are lowly, those who are put down, how you treat everyone and how you treat yourself and how you live in the world. That reflects God. That pleases God. And we need to hear that. We need to not take the holiness that we're called to and make it into the hollowness of, I don't know. It's like asking yourself, why is Kim Kardashian famous? Or Paris Hilton? Why are they famous? I don't know. Why are you a Christian? How does it manifest in you, right? Do you have that hollow faith, that hollow obedience, that hollow acting out, following God, or do we have a full obedient, obedience to Christ alone, brought out of the land of death and put on the walking path to the land of life? New creation. Church, out of Isaiah, 2 things that we need to avoid. We invert this. What should we avoid? We should avoid taking the sacredness of God and turning it into the silliness of us. Okay? We should not put onto God our own ideas. Oh, well, God, you're supposed to be loving, so you're supposed to act this way. God, you're supposed to be fair, so you're supposed to... No. God is the expression of all these things. God is high and lifted up. God's especially reflected, shown to us in Jesus the Messiah. That sacredness is to be respected, and don't make it silly. The second piece is we should avoid taking the holy calling of God and turning it into the hollowness of, silliness again. Turning the holy ethical calling we have and making it into nothing more than something we say. Now, I'll close that back again with that Jordan Peterson idea. Who dares say they believe in God? Because he says when you say that, your words need to be backed up by your actions. And so, how are our actions today? Are they backing up our words? Because this is a huge claim, Christian. This is a huge claim, disciple. If you're going to say it, do it. And if you're not going to do it, don't say it, right? Don't even proclaim it, because you're not going to fool anybody. I'm not going to fool anybody. So, that's where I'm going to go with this today. The inversion from Isaiah 6. Don't turn the sacred into the silly. Don't turn the holy into the hollow. Avoid those at all costs. Walk with God. All right, thanks. I'll see you next time.